as we well know by now, Monet Tejada unfortunately passed away in the last episode of Power Book 2 Go. Rest in peace, Monet Tejada. Definitely the best Power Mom by far. Argue about that with your own mother. But before she died, we got some much needed context on her relationship with Cane. Now, we know when Cane was held at gunpoint by Noma, he had mentioned why he rides for Monet so hard and why he's never going to go against his mom. Essentially, there was a time in his past where he was getting abused. No real context on the abuse itself, but regardless, abuse is abuse. And Monet was the only one there for him at that time to pick him up, to defend him and help him get through that tough time. Now, unfortunately, we didn't get a flashback to come with that to kind of go more in depth with what happened and how Monet was there for him. But from that moment on, Cane pledged allegiance to Monet completely, going against anybody else that goes against his mom. Even his siblings. On her order, he was about to take out Drew and Diana earlier on in the season. If you think about it, Cane has always been on go for Monet since season 1. From the first episode, he was mad that Tariq came into the picture because he always felt like he could handle any issue that they ran into while Lorenzo was in jail. Obviously, we've seen that that was not the case. But in my opinion, Cane has shown as the series has gone on that he is probably the most capable Tejada of any of the Tejadas that we've seen in the series. He's always telling Drew and Diana that his life is the game, and he takes it very serious, and he shows it on an episode-to-episode basis, I feel like. Even when he gets himself into a tough bind, he always somehow finds a way out of it, whether it's through his own means or through Tariq or whoever. And he's took a lot of actions to keep his mom alive, doing the dumb shit she was doing in these streets, if we being for real. Now, we know that Monet was raising them kids to be young soldiers when Lorenzo went into jail. We saw from Drew and Diana's perspective, she had them putting together dime bags at like 3 and 5 years old. It was crazy. But we also know Monet mentioned something in one of the earlier episodes that Cane stepped up when Lorenzo went to jail. And that he didn't have to, but he took that responsibility seriously. And we see that in Cane's actions, bro. He's been doing this for a minute. Anyway, I want to get into the point of this video. I'm kind of going on a little tangent as I usually do. What I really want to talk about is a comment that Cane had made, I think in season 1 or season 2, I don't remember. But it's when he asked Monet the question of, am I a soldier to you or am I your son? And she said, you're both. What I want to know is, when did that disconnect become a thing? When did it go from she was looking out for me and she picked me up during that hard time to you're my soldier, you're going to do as I say? I want to theorize when that potentially happened and why Monet ultimately ended up claiming him as a soldier rather than her son. Now, we know why Cane decides to stay so devoted to his mother after the events of this episode. On top of her being his mom, we know that she was there for him through that tough time that he went through. But when I believe the disconnect came between Cane being her son and being her soldier was ultimately when Lorenzo went to jail. Now, unfortunately, we didn't get to see this, but she had Drew and Diana bagging up dime bags as young as they were at that point in time. What was Cane out here doing in the streets? Do you remember how young Drew was when he had to catch his first body because Monet was incompetent in that entire scene where she was getting wrecked by dude? Can you imagine what Cane had to be out here doing in these streets at that time when he was that age? That brother was not in school. He was in the streets putting on for the family at old times. And he was probably very effective too. As we've seen, a lot of members of this family and this organization are really not all that in the street outside of Cane. We see when Drew and Diana tap in, they could get into that state, but Cane is just on go at all times. I feel like this effectivity combined with the fact that he is her son made Monet rely on him so much to where she just lost sight of the fact that he was her son, bro, as crazy as that sounds. On top of the fact that Monet is not the best mother in the world. And add on the fact that she was really the one who was heading this operation. Yeah, Lorenzo probably got them in the game, but Monet is who kept them in the game. His words even, she kept the organization alive while he was in jail that whole time. But she didn't do it by herself, bro. She had Cane outside in these streets handling shit. I really think bro was outside from a young age, and ultimately because he was doing all these things for the organization, Monet kind of lost sight of who he was as her child. We got to see Diana and Drew lead paths of good kids, you know, going to school. Yeah, they was doing their things on the side with Monet, but ultimately Cane didn't have that track. He tells Diana and Drew all the time, y'all have these futures. Diana, you can go to school and do this. Drew, you got art. I got the streets. That's it. And that's because he was raised and bred into this shit. We saw in the little flashback with Monet and her sister, bro. She had Cane in the back seat with the gun under his seat, bro. I heard Tasha pull that same shit off in the OG Power. I don't remember it, but if that did happen, that's good shit. That's what we call good writing. I knew y'all boys at Stars had it in y'all. I also think because Cane was so devout to these streets and making sure his family was good that she didn't really see him as a child. He had to grow up really quick and adapt to the streets and make shit happen. So when he asked her, am I your child or am I your soldier? She felt like she had to say both because, bro, like, yeah, you my kid by blood, but like, you've been in these streets hustling, so you a soldier. I think in Monet's eyes, that's a compliment because she's so locked in this game, but in reality, you just messed up your kids, and we know that now. Look at everything Cane had to go through from her end in order to end up on Noma's side even. All the disrespect every time he got kicked out the house for making a simple mistake. Like, you think about it, Drew and Diana ordered a hit out on Monet. Cane finds this out and he doesn't take a hit at Drew and Diana until Monet says, yo, we gotta take him up off the board. He understands this because they went against family. Of course they should be taken up off the board. Why wouldn't they? If it was me, I would have been taken out. I'm your soldier. And just when he has Drew dead to rights, right at the last second, Monet gives him the call, stop, and it's over with. He don't kill him. That frustration he took out on Drew after he called him a mama's boy was real. Because I think that he felt in that moment that if it was me on the other end of that trigger and Drew had the gun on me, she would not have called off the order to get me killed. And that's ultimately what leads me to the problem with what Cane said in this episode about always riding for Monet. Because I get the context. Like, that connection between y'all at a young age, it ultimately made him feel more reinforced to do what he did in the streets in order to protect his family. And I get why he would ride for his mom. That's his mom. What kind of son doesn't want to ride for his mom? I just wish we saw more genuine connections between Cane and Monet throughout the series and not just in this episode. There was times where it was lighthearted and they were joking around. Obviously, they had the family dinners and whatnot. I saw this clip going around on Twitter when Cane and Monet pulled up to the Weston crib to rob them of their photos to pay back compensation after the little Weston bank scandal thing. That was funny. So they do have good moments together and their chemistry on screen is always on point. I just wish we got more of Monet referring to Cane as her son and really showing that affection towards him. But ultimately, that's just not her character. She never even really showed that towards Drew and Diana, so how could I really expect her to do that towards Cane, who was ultimately her ultimate soldier? Ultimately, her ultimate soldier is mad crazy. One thing I will say before I leave this video is that I do appreciate how Power Ghost made Monet's redemption story come full circle at the end. I was a little worried, I'm not gonna lie, because they just threw this in and it felt kind of forced that she didn't want to take Diana and Drew up off the board after everything they did earlier on in the season. But I stand on what I said when I first dropped the episode review. This whole episode was a Tejada special. You have the whole family coming together, and not just because of the Carter and Noma thing. They all addressed where they were wrong in the situation in some form or fashion. You had Drew and Diana deciding to ride with Monet despite everything she's done to their family, taking their father off the board, all that. Before Monet tells them y'all are grown enough to make y'all own. We've seen so many times in the past Monet dictate the lives of her kids, telling Diana she can't go to school, telling Drew he's always going to be in the street, you're not meant for this art shit. And that's not even going to how bad she be going in on Cane. So this is great character development for all of them. And then even the conversation at the beginning of the episode between Monet and Cane. It was so good that Monet acknowledged Cane as her son before she went out like that. And ultimately, that should have really raised death flags in my head after that happened. I'm telling y'all, that's the first time she called him son. But I am glad they had that interaction before the episode ended, though. My only other gripe is that they did not tell Cane about the play. I've heard a lot of people saying, oh man, Cane would have ruined it. He would have told Noma about it, everything like that. After what he said about his mom in this episode, you think he's gonna risk her dying? What have I always said about Cane? His first name is family first. He's riding with the Tejadas till the wheels fall off, so I don't understand why they never include him in this type of shit. That's why I feel like Cane deserves his own spinoff, man, because these people, they hold him back, I feel like. But anyway, that's all I got for y'all today, man. Great episode. Let me know what you think about my analysis of Cane and Monet's relationship. How do y'all feel like the Tejadas is going to move in this next episode? Obviously, from the trailers, we've seen that Drew is going to have beef with Cane and vice versa. But I think that that's misleading. I feel like the Tejadas are going to have to come together to take Noma up off the board. Like, put your feelings aside. They just took out our mom, bro. We got to spin back. I feel like Cane got to be the one to take the shot too, bro. Like, it's so many times Tariq got to be the one to take out the opposition. Monet got to be the one to take out the opposition. It's Cane's turn, bro. Stop playing with my mans. He's built for this.